Okay, so we'll be calling the meeting of the City of Laredo's Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 1 to order. Let's go ahead and start with the item that was called orders number 1, number 2, roll call.
You got the roll call?
No, that's a sign-in sheet.
You got the roll call, Alex?
No, I don't have.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Henry Savigny?
I can, yeah, I was gonna say,
Henry Savigny?
here,
Patty Goldberg?
Here.
Carol Alexander, not present. Ben Puig?
Here.
Jose Castillo?
Here.
James Kirby Snyderman? Not present. Arturo Garcia? You have quorums.
thank you very much. The third item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting, which were sent to us. Thank you, City, for sending them to us last Friday, giving us an opportunity to review the minutes and make any comments or corrections as necessary.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented? Or do you have a change?
I do have a change.
Okay.
On the first line of the second page, says Mr. Savigny reported the second meeting with Able City was as Mr. Puig, Mr. Garcia, and he. I wasn't at the second meeting, right?
No, I think you were.
The first one.
Yeah, well, there was one where me and you met, right?
Yeah,
But was that?
but we were not
This is-
reporting, we were reporting, let's see, the status. And
Oh, but that was afterwards.
Right.
This was, shouldn't,
That was you, come in.
I guess I'm kind of confused on when that, was this
No,
meeting before the last meeting?
this should include you,
Okay.
yeah.
It should include you, and maybe what we needed there was a date instead of just a second meeting.
Yeah. The second meeting, it was when you weren't able to make it, and me and Henry met with.
Okay.
So the correction is should be reported on the meeting with Able City, that the meeting with Able City was a success.
Okay, not the second meeting.
Right,
Okay, because I'm kind of confused. These are the minutes from June 11th.
right.
Okay.
You were there.
Okay.
It might have been just kind of said like that, but it just maybe, you were.
Very good. So the correction will be, should be noted that on page 2, the first line should read, Mr. Sauvigny reported that the meeting with Able City was a success. Any other comments?
Are there any comments, motion to approve with the amended correction?
It's been moved that we approve the minutes as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved as amended. Item 4, citizen comments. Citizens are required to fill out a witness card and submit it to the chairperson or designee no later than 5:45 and identify themselves at the microphone. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, no more than 3 minutes. 3 persons will be allowed to speak on any side of an issue. Should there be more than 3 people who wish to speak on a particular issue, they need to select not more than 3 representatives to speak for them, and the presiding officer may limit the public comments. Further, in the interest of an orderly meeting, speakers may not pass their minutes to any other speaker. Comments should be relevant to the city's business and delivered in a professional manner. No derogatory remarks will be permitted. I don't believe we have any citizens signed up at this time. Next item on the agenda was item 5, a status report with possible action on the negotiations with Able City regarding the fee proposal for consultants. And can I ask Arturo to begin the conversation on that?
Okay, well, we met, the subcommittee met, which was Ben, myself, and Mr. Savigny, Henry, with Able City and their principals. It was Viviana, Frank, and Mario on 2 occasions. And then the initial one was obviously what we were looking at, the taskings originally. And I think we all agreed on the taskings. And with this one, we requested the fee proposal. And this last meeting that we met, we outlined some of the expectations, and we looked at their fee proposal, and we asked them about the several aspects of it, which are, one, their administration. It's broken down into administration. So you look there, there's a monthly expectation of, if you look at where it says on the page 4, it says compensation. So this is what we're looking at for the administrative portion running the TERS in terms of helping us do the daily operations of what we need to get done administratively, such as bylaws and, RFPs and all that good stuff related to that. They're saying 12,681 per month. That would be the total, but that would be based on actual billed amounts. And I think we had run it through you. I think we had tried to check to make sure you're okay with the engineering and architectural fees. Were you okay, Ben, with them? Or
I'll need a review.
Oh, okay.
Those.
And it's just a proposal. We don't have to accept or anything.
Right.
If somebody got more questions, we can meet with them. But the intent was to do a monthly allowance, not to exceed 12,681. Obviously, our concern is not that we, get the project moving and get dirt and actual physical infrastructure moving, and not concentrate so much on the planning side of it and all that stuff.
Exactly.
That's been made very, very keenly aware to our contractor or consultant. Then the
So, you just said, just to add a point, so it is a cap. So that you can see the various items that they see themselves working on. They delineate them. Arturo and I and Ben looked at that list very carefully and said, yeah, that's something you ought to be working on. In fact, what this list doesn't include are a couple of points, not many, but a couple of points that we said, no, that's not something we would be working on. So they eliminated the things we didn't say they were going to be working on. They kept what they're going to be working on, and now you're seeing a schedule on how they would charge us for the project, depending on who was working on it.
I mean, one of the major intents too is obviously having them start all the administrative portion, and we requested from them that we would like to, hopefully in the future, transition to maybe some staff that would then be trained and could kind of catch on really quickly and then could keep up, and then kind of like they would work themselves out of the administrative piece.
Okay.
So
here
that's what we
they,
did discuss, right, Henry? And so that we could develop right now we figure it would be very difficult for somebody to just get them off the street and have all the subset of requirements that you would need, that a company itself would have, and easily move forward.
so for instance, on the compensation, they have it broken up into like planning and implementation, financial analysis and execution, general administration. So are some of those items, like say 1.1, prepare an annual 5-year capital improvement plan. So they have a principal, an associate, project manager, staff. So 1.1, they have an allowance of $250. So then, is that gonna be every month for a long time, or is it, they'll bill it as they do it, or?
It's all on us how we would want to do them. If you think that we could cap it for less, and then
Well, no, I guess
go up to.
No, so what he's asking, so here what you have here is a picture of how much time they feel they're gonna be taking on a monthly basis.
For each one of those
to
tasks.
dedicate to those tasks, exactly. If they don't work on that task, number one, if they didn't do anything based on the 5-year plan, that first bill would not, that first
Okay.
line would not be there.
And it's everything from, getting the administrative portion moving in terms of getting the project bid out and all that. The initial stuff getting
Like
everything.
mainly the general administration?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, related to some of the stuff that we want as a board done too. Try to reach out to the college and work out, with them and trying to include them into the TERS and looking at the numbers and then coordinating for the financing and all those elements of it.
So what I sense here, and that's fine, I think that we wanted to look at it and talk about it. We wanted you maybe to get a feel for it ahead of time on Friday, but you still have time to look at it, and we want you to feel comfortable with this, because this is the budget we're gonna be moving forward with.
Right.
And so, Patty, if you saw anything in here that didn't sound logical or whatever, we want to hear from the board as a whole. But basically what page 4 is telling us is how many hours, on average, on a monthly basis, they think they would be spending on their topic, and who would be working on that within their office, so that we know that they're going to be charged at the principal level, at the staff level, or at the assistant staff level, so to speak.
And it's a max of that.
Right, so this is like if
it could be-
they hit every single point from line items 1 through 4, if they hit every single one, then that's what it would be.
Yes. However, I would note that it's possible that, for example, they wouldn't do 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, but they would do a lot of, just to say something, 3.10 and 3.11. So
Right.
the hours there would increase, because that's what they have to focus on that month.
Right.
So that's how that changes, and I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Ben.
No, I'm just wondering about the consultant cost.
So here the consultant cost,
I mean, those are the two lines, 2.1 and 2.3, that it's almost $2,000 a month.
right, and mostly that's working with the consultant. Remember, we talked about
That
bringing,
initial one?
yes, for bringing in someone who would help us put together the information on whether we had, if we went to bond, how we would do that, using the TERS and the experience they have in prior jobs in doing this. Now, let's just say the city decided, no, we can work with you on this and
Right.
work within our bonding, then we don't have to worry
Right.
about that side.
Okay.
It's all, what they wanted to do was cover all their bases
Right.
In
and
case.
avoid well, you didn't tell us you were gonna charge us for X or Y.
We just feel also that, like, for example, we were to hire an employee or a director to run this, that it would probably be, I mean, to have that whole skill set, I
For all of
mean,
these tasks?
it's not there by one person, so I mean,
Right.
we wanna get moving off the ground, as we've all mentioned, that we wanna start moving dirt and start moving and making ourselves, our presence known in the downtown, especially with the project number 1. So that's been one of our major tasking to them, to start moving project 1.
And the other thing that was interesting that we talked about was just, and this is all, we haven't yet gone to visit, but we're talking about how other TERS work in other cities, where you have TERS 1, TERS 2, TERS 3, TERS 4. So city staff already has developed an expertise within the city and hired people who are doing this for the TERS on a regular basis. We don't have that yet. And so, as Arturo was saying, they begin to work it, perhaps shadowing or working with them as someone from the city at some point, where then they begin to take on those tasks themselves, and the administrative side falls, and then we're left with the project development.
Or eventually we decide to hire somebody and, they take over.
All these tasks.
Or it'll be much more simplified, because
Right.
it'll be, I mean, a lot of these things will already be kind of
Right.
set. So dealing with the
Well-
project,
Our fear here, and that's why Arturo keeps on saying, our emphasis is that we need to move faster and quick, we need to start moving forward. One, because we have funding in the process. We have funding in the process. They have an expertise. The city, I mean, we hear it, we see it on the news. The city staff has a lot on its plate. This is one of many things they have on its plate. So let's hire the people who are gonna be working on this, so that they dedicate and focus themselves just on this, at least initially. Does that sum it up? And that's part 1.
so that's part 1, the administration.
Yeah,
So then you have the 2 other elements, which is the project development. So then you go into the pre-development, which is all the planning, project management aspect, which is your RFQing, your project management, your contract negotiations, all that. So that goes into, that's all of 5 and 6. And then you have, with that, you have basically the compensation that will be required for the project management of all that. I'm sorry, two items, not just 3. So you have those 2 elements. Hopefully, our tasking to them when we were talking to them is we want them to hopefully, within a year or 2, work themselves out of the administration. And then we can either have a full-time staff or develop some sort of other process, or maybe they're doing so good that we keep them.
well, and the other idea here
Right.
behind all of this is that we work with the city to leverage bond money to move this on a larger scale faster, because if it's moving on a larger scale faster, and this is just a thought that we have been discussing, it brings down this cost. Because this cost, if they're working on, let me use this as an example, if the project that we're working on is valued at $2 million, this is pricey. But if what they're working on is $10 million worth of infrastructure, then this becomes less pricey. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And our proposed discussions with them, we also were mentioning to them that we want them to look at the bonding capacity that we would have as a project whole, and I think what was the, I forget the amount, Henry, the total funding amount that we would look over the 30 years.
The
32 million?
The comes in, 32 million comes in.
Yes,
right.
so look at all that project, potential projects, so we can then also then have them move, like, start moving project one, but at the same time, then we get the bonding capacity, we have the money, and then start looking at all the planning, development, and coordination with downtown, and figuring out, hey, board, these are the projects 2, 3, 4, and 5 that we'd like you to proceed. And obviously, one of the items that's tied into it, and I guess we'll get into it right now, is having these projects tie in with all the security issues that we are looking at trying to make improvements for downtown. Lighting, cameras, and including that in our cost to redevelop any areas that we look at, so. But
I think that rate structure is pretty good.
we think it's a fair proposal, I mean, for what they're doing. And remember, it's all on us, we can stop it at any time, and it's just an initial fee structure. We just need to get the board's approval to move forward with the fee structure, so that way we can then move forward to negotiate or to establish a contract with
To
them.
establish a contract.
And bring a contract for the board, hopefully for the next meeting.
When they say under compensation, when they say pre-development planning and programming, all projects, are they thinking that they're gonna do pre-development planning and that all projects are gonna be between 8 million and 12 million?
How did
Where are you reading?
You're looking at page 7. Page 7.
Okay, so they were explaining to us how the cost works as a percentage of.
Of the total cost of construction?
Yes, exactly.
So I understand that part, but the project management, there's 2 line items. The first one and the second line item is project management. So this is like the sliding rate structure. So it's gonna be 10% fee. What I don't understand is the pre-development planning and programming, 1.15% with a project budget of 8 million to 12 million. So is it the pre-development planning of that percentage plus the percentage of the project management?
Yeah, because the pre-development, that's planning the project ahead of time. So designing the project, working the project, so that when it lets out to bid, the contractor knows what they're bidding for.
So I guess they made an assumption that all the projects are gonna be between 8 million and 12 million dollars?
Well,
I mean, the way we understood it was basically like the pre-development was gonna be basically to have the schematics and not necessarily the design, but the preliminary,
Yeah.
thoughts to what, we want them to proceed with in terms of design, and all those items related to like what we've been talking about, the even sidewalks, the similar use of materials.
exactly, that's exactly what that means.
And all that stuff, and then having that big plan with projects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then.
So that project where they put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the pre-development planning and programming?
Yeah, so we can develop, what are we gonna do?
Right.
What are we gonna do? I mean, we got bonding capacity for 30 million, so we got 5 million for project 1.
You're just saying theoretically,
Yeah,
right?
I'm just,
Okay.
theoretically, thank you.
Yeah.
So then you have 25 million, so what do we do with the 25 million? And what's project 2, 3? So part of that is taking into account doing the public input, which is some of the administration. So it's gonna be a mix of the pre-development and the administration, and then the project development on individually, so. But I'm hoping that we can wean them out within 2 years or so.
Well, the truth of the matter is, and I'm hoping by that time, the project's well underway.
Yeah. That's the other thing too.
And if the project's well underway, there might be an end in sight.
And Henry had a very valid concern early on when we were discussing the fee structure and everything. Because you want to tell them about what you were discussing with Ms. Cabello in terms of the bonding and how that works?
Right, so in speaking to the co-city manager, she was explaining to me that in order to get a bond, you need so much money already in hand. So I think we're using 10 million as an example. You need 1.5 million to leverage approximately 10 million in bonds, okay? But that's not it, but that's not all, folks. you also need 1.5 million in reserves.
So you need 3 million for 10.
So basically, that's what it sounded like to me. I still need to meet with with the city and discuss that a little bit further. And as you know, we're not there yet.
Right.
So that we need to we want to move fast, but we may need assistance in moving fast. And assistance means working with the city in some project where we can leverage both city monies and tourist money to reach that critical 3 million point where we can leverage the money to bring funds in.
Right. So is that a number that?
That's an ongoing discussion. I need to know
The 10
exactly.
but is
We'll
a $10
probably-
million number?
We'll probably get Jose to comment on this one, I don't know.
And
We're probably- what we're
yeah,
saying.
Did I say that right?
I'm not sure what she was talking about. I know every time that we sell bonds, we have to have some sort of a reserves, and that's probably what she was talking about, the $1.5 million in reserves. And then we also have to have the ability to, in this case, collect taxes that is gonna be used to pay off that debt.
Which
So-
we do.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's where she was coming out with another $1.5 million. So you have to have those two items. I guess we could probably talk to the city's financial advisor and get some advice from them and see how much, what's that we can do with, right now we have 600,000 in the account.
So then, so if it's like 3.3 to 1, then we can bond up to $2 million right now.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about, we need to be creative here and start talking to the city about what we can work with that the city already has planned for the downtown area where we can leverage.
So as a TERS board, is there a certain number? Is it the $10 million? Is that like when we're gonna start projects when we can bond up to $10 million?
That's why we need this administrative portion kicked off, so they can do that analysis for us and get with the city and the financial planner, and then come back and say, board, this is what we'd like to recommend to do.
Exactly.
We really need somebody to kind of be looking at that.
Who's
and develop-
focused on that, whose focus is putting this together.
Right.
I mean, individually, we have finance and expertise, an engineering expertise, but this makes more than a part-time deal. We need someone focusing in this all the time.
So I'm just probably asking questions further
You
on down the
should.
line,
No,
but
no,
if, let's just say we had 300,000, no, 3 million in the bank to leverage 10 million, and we go get a bond for 10 million. So we use that 3 million to leverage the 10 million, then we have to pay back the bond over a certain time frame. But then, are we gonna be able to do other project, or is it gonna be like, once we get that one big bond, are we gonna be silent for years after that, or can we still do more stuff after that first bond?
Well, so remember, there was a conversation here, and this is all what ifs, okay?
Right,
But remember, there's a conversation here, we're also talking about student housing in the downtown area.
right.
We know that these numbers do not include the community college, Laredo College. And so, since it doesn't include the college, if the college wants to partner with us and work with us on that project, then that would include additional money that's gonna be coming in because that revenue is an additional revenue. So there's another source of fund for a different type of project that could go on concurrently.
Okay.
And that was part of the reason why, part of the agreement is to talk to the county and the college district, which I reminded the consultants that they don't need to do that for the first time. That we've already spoken, thanks to you, to the county, and I brought Dr. Solis to the table, and he met with us here in this very room for he heard a presentation. So the subject, they already know of it. The idea is, let's bring them on board. That increases the pool of money.
Okay.
But it's a puzzle.
We still need to get the contract established, so this is just kind of like,
Right.
we had concerned over any of this, so we could address it with them and say, well, we'd like to just.
So it's like, get all this stuff done, and then they'll identify phase 1, project number 1, with a cost of,
Which we've already done, so to speak.
so to speak, but
We've
not,
already identified that the.
but not bids or hard
Right,
plans or anything.
exactly.
So once we get that cost back, if it costs 2.5 million, how do we do it?
Yeah, and that's the question. And that's an open question. How do we do it?
Right.
And that's where we're gonna depend on them to give us
Start
advice.
figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right.
let them figure it out. That way they know how much what we get, the time with the finance, how much are we getting each year, what's in the kitty right now, what's the project estimate for what we want to do.
Right.
And then start moving from that point forward. Okay, we need an estimated 10 million bucks. Okay, so that's what we got. Can we do it or not, or what do we need
Right.
to do?
But your example of the 2 million is why we're saying, given the cost, I mean, this is not inexpensive, obviously, this expertise and professionalism and service costs money. For a $2 million project, so maybe it needs to be for a $10 million project. So the question is, how do we get a $10 million project underway,
Right.
so that it makes the expense of this viable?
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, the other components of this also to get, I like to get the board's input in terms of how would you like it structured? Would you like it structured, you know, to initiate a 6-month period with 2 or 3 6-month renewals, or a 2-year contract with 1 renewal of 1 year? Or how
A
would you want?
retainer,
I mean, how long do you think it would take to do a project like?
It's all on us, so I mean, we can decide on that. I mean.
No, but wouldn't we kind of, in order to decide that, wouldn't it make sense to know how long a project is
You're looking at
supposed to
least, I'm
take?
looking at least 3 years.
For that one project, one?
Yeah,
Really?
it has to be designed.
Maybe not that long, but.
It has
it's
to
gonna
be designed.
Well, I guess from very big, from
Right now?
planning to construction maybe, yeah.
But if you think about it, okay, so it has to be designed, you have to meet with the property owners. You have to have the plan of street closure so that you phase it in parts. Then you have to have the bidding process.
Maybe 2 years.
There's a bidding
Right.
process. Yeah,
So,
well,
a year to plan and get everything teed up, and then a year for construction.
yeah, I mean, I like
Well, depends on complexity.
I like
if
to be
you're-
an optimist.
If you're boring
Okay,
or,
2
you know,
years.
who knows?
Okay, but I just, it's gonna be a challenge. And mind you, that project may be a $2 to $3 million project. So should they be only doing this, if we're working on that, why shouldn't we be doing another part and another part so that we have them simultaneously managing projects?
It's not just gonna be one, and then the other, and then the other. No.
I want to try to get funds so that this moves forward. The question is how. And so we need to meet with the city to discuss it.
Yeah, it's
But
just,
going back to the question on the contract,
The
so,
contract,
so what, I think this is where Arturo might be going. So the first piece is the design. Let's say 6 months comes along and we're not satisfied with where it's
It's a
going.
progress.
That's why, that's why I'm concerned, I'm not making it like a year contract.
Right.
Let's try a 6-month.
And we'll say, you know what, we thought we knew what this was supposed to look like. It's obviously not looking like what we thought it was gonna look like. Let's.
And can we
cut it
give them
off.
deadlines? Like,
Yeah,
yeah?
I don't know, 6 months is pretty short.
No, 6 months with a 6-month extension until you make it 1 year, but we just wanna know that, you know, in 6 months.
They made enough progress.
So if we don't feel comfortable,
we'll tell them if you can only double this in the next 6 months, this is not the pace we're looking at.
Right.
Look at our pace.
Yeah, well, that's not right. And so, and that brings a very important point. And I'd like to give everybody here in the room, the talking point that's very, I use it all the time and I think it's necessary to keep it in mind. We can only go as fast as the money is coming in.
Right.
And that's how TERSs are set up. And this TERS is particularly challenging. There are different kinds of TERSs throughout the state. This TERS is set up in the most challenging form in the state. We're taking an area that's in need of repair. See, some TERSs are set up in zones that have there's no development. It's raw land. And so you're working with a blank slate and you have investors and that becomes a TERS and you work and you develop it. That's good. And everything that comes in after a certain point is revenue, if you think about it. Because you freeze at a certain level, so suddenly anything you do is an improvement and suddenly you're bringing a lot of money. This TERS has a component of having frozen taxes, and it all depends on what we do in the TERS district, and so that's streaming in gradually. And I say this, right, I say this over and over and over again, just in case you meet people out there that challenge you, saying, God, how long has the church been around? Well, and then I tell them what we have done. The walking of the district, the meeting with the utilities people, the meeting with the water people, the whole thing, meeting with the various departments that help us inform ourselves. And we're in the process of getting smarter about this all the time. So I say all of that because you said, well, how long have we been on this? But there's a reason. We couldn't, even if we had won it our first year, we couldn't have done anything.
Just to make you feel more comfortable about it, my biggest concern, and Henry's also, we line up really well on this, is we don't want to spend this money just on design and administration, and then we have nothing to show
We'll
in a
be at the
year.
front page of the
We've been-
news.
yeah.
No,
That's
that's
happened already
That's
before.
definitely not where we want to go, and we're trying to push them as hard as we can, and I think establishing, I guess we can come up with 2 or 3 scenarios, contract-wise, and then have the board vote on them at the next one, and then even if it takes us a special meeting to do a special meeting,
Right.
we do it.
Especially because I know that we had mentioned, maybe they forgot, we didn't remind them, but we mentioned to Viviana that we were going to be meeting today. They said they would be here in case there were any questions.
Yeah,
But we may not have reminded them, so what we need to do is if we need a special meeting to vote on moving forward with this, because I think Ben, you need to look at this, and Patty, you need to look at this and feel comfortable with what you're seeing. I know you haven't seen it in the detail that I think you want to look at this, so we'll call.
And if we need to set up a special meeting with, like, let's say you and whoever wasn't Ben, we'll go and meet with them over there, like in 3 or 2 of us, and that way you can get that feedback directly. That's what I would suggest.
That's a good idea.
So I say let's move,
What is the, I
a
don't
motion to allow, maybe we should just allow everybody to kind of get a better understanding of it, Henry? And then for next month, we can maybe potentially, or maybe we can have a special meeting
To approve it?
to approve the fee structure and,
So that way at the next meeting, then they'll already be participants?
yeah, the main piece is establishing a contract so we can start moving.
Right.
Because I
Does that
think
have to go to city council? You might have already said that.
I don't believe
think
so.
so,
No, we've been told that we've been told at a separate
The board
meeting.
can award contracts.
Once a project and use plan has been kind of provided, we got full direction, that's
Oh,
a
go-
document.
Although, if you'll allow me, I would like maybe as in addition to one of these special meetings, maybe being Patty and whoever else would like to be there, meeting with Able City to get the give and take. Maybe we can also, we should set up a meeting with the manager's office, city manager's office, to discuss our progress on this as well. I mean, it helps to have their view or their thoughts on this, because what we don't want is suddenly a question on the project to come along.
But you've been doing a good job with
Were they-
keeping them.
I've been trying, but I just want to make sure that the city staff is comfortable that they're hearing what they need to be hearing.
I'm okay with the way we're progressing. I mean, this is probably a very quick way to get moving. We need to start moving.
But was the
We need
intent,
money.
was the intent of this item on the agenda to approve and accept
Just a
the
fee
proposal?
structure.
The fee structure.
The fee
that they-
Fee
structure,
structure.
and if you want more time to peruse it and.
Well, I mean, I don't want y'all to, if y'all are ready to tee it up and for this meeting,
No,
I don't wanna delay it.
I would want to make sure that you're comfortable with
Yeah.
it.
Or are you
that
guys
we're-
comfortable with it?
I am to an extent. I'm just concerned about how we set up the contract in terms of how much time.
Time.
I was hoping that, to get input from everybody in terms of.
So
they feel
does that-
comfortable with
does-
this-
does
this
that
max
mean-
cap, and maybe you want to cap it at 10. I mean, you can, and then they can come in every month, hey, 10,000 is too little, I mean, we're not making it, you see, you can only do so much, I mean.
So does the time aspect need to be a part of this proposal? Like when you-
I think it's in the contract.
So if we approve this fee structure, then we're gonna put this fee structure in a contract with Able City, and that's where it'll talk about the time?
Yes, because the only thing that's on the item that we are agreeing on is a fee structure, not a time. So we're agreeing to the fee structure. This gives permission for the city to begin developing a contract that would include all the technicalities that you're talking about. Who do you report to? Who do you send your reports to? How often are they coming? And how long is the contract for?
Right.
Because I imagine now with our new economic development director, I imagine that this is gonna fall under them for the payments of processing of this whole deal. So, I mean, because somebody in the city's gotta pay these guys.
We're gonna ask our consultant, hey, how are we supposed to pay you?
Because somebody's gotta do the payment request for the tourists.
Yeah, I mean, somebody, I guess from the board would have to approve every estimate or every invoice that's presented to us.
Let me ask a question, Arturo, or just to the city as a whole. Is there any department in particular that needs to, is there any department that would see this fee structure that also gives it its blessing? That would,
It would be engineering.
is that something we can run by engineering?
We can run by engineering if you want us to get his input, and we can ask him to come to the next meeting if you so wish.
I think
Well,
so.
we can take our, I mean, this is a lot of money, so I mean.
Yes,
I think we should just take our time. I mean, we're waiting for the,
the money to come in.
Money.
so I don't think we should necessarily rush to
Right.
approve, but I think we need to set ourselves a good 60 to 90-day goal to get a contract moving and.
So that would give us a chance for those members, so what what we would do is we'd send out a message, an email to the board members that would like to meet with Able City. So they can, in the interim, can meet with Able City.
I'm sure Carol will want to, she hasn't done that.
Right, she has it. And then it also gives the city a chance to run this by engineering.
Okay.
For action at the next meeting.
By then, I mean, everybody should have enough time to be able to, if you don't feel comfortable then, well, then you're
Yes.
not doing your homework. and-
Then you're not doing your homework, exactly. Does that make sense? Ben?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that I don't think this needs to be in the form of a motion because these are just the steps we're taking, right?
But does everybody feel comfortable with like where we're going with it? Any issues with it that you see concerns? I mean, too much on the monthly or? I feel
Well,
it's
it's
all-
It's hard to know, it's hard to know until they actually get going.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the fees, what they're charging per individual, I think that's very fair. That's the going rate, what they're putting there.
Yeah.
It's a matter of how much they're gonna accomplish in that given month for the $12,000.
Correct.
That's really, and it's really a wait and see.
Good, okay.
Okay.
So next.
So next item on the agenda is a discussion of possible action regarding the yearly calendar of meeting dates for the remainder of 2019. So this was just sent out as a reminder, I believe, because we discussed it at the last meeting. So we could put it on our calendars, right?
Yeah, well, I think I have to have sent out calendar invites, which is very helpful.
Now, we did have like a little bit of, it's always been the second Tuesday of the month, and I think
When we sat down and we talked about it, we scheduled it for this August, this is the first
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yes, so.
But all the rest are in zinc.
Well, the only one is, I think, October 8th, I think, or November 5th, I'm sorry. I think was
It's
the,
also first.
it's also first, I think, so let me just verify, so the 10th is a second, the 8th is the second Tuesday, and then, yes, so it would be, it would have to be changed to the 12th.
Let's change it to the 12th, to be
Okay. So
consistent.
motion to change the November 5th meeting to the 12th, to be consistent on the second Tuesday of every month.
There's a motion on the table, is there a second?
My second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion
And then
carries.
the December 10 meeting is on the
so
2nd.
can we get a calendar invite
I'll adjust them.
revision?
Yes, for that.
Very good. Next item on the agenda is a discussion with possible action regarding a request by the city of Laredo to prioritize consideration support by the downtown tourists for security and lighting improvements in downtown. So what happened was that I was invited to a meeting.
Mr. Chair, just I want to,
Yes.
I think Mr. Dan McGee, our new traffic director, is here.
Oh, very good.
And I don't know, just wanted to introduce him And also, you know, if you want to say something real quick too, when, from the board or whatever.
Like I said, I'm Dan McGee. I just started with the city at the beginning of July. And I was asked to come here, I guess, for this item,
Oh, very good.
see what information can provide it. If you need any questions, answer them to me now.
Well, what I'll do is I'll put together a general discussion of what from what I've heard, and then please add and or correct anything I might be saying. So a couple of weeks ago, I got a call from the city manager's office asking me to join a meeting with Councilman Bali, as well as Rosario Cabello, and Police Chief Trevino, and a number of other members of the police department to discuss downtown lighting and security and everything. And obviously, with the growing activity in the downtown area, this is a concern. I'm obviously invited because the TERS is seen as being able to provide some infrastructure. What was clear, provide some support for this planning. What was made clear at the meeting and by the co-city manager was that the TERS funds are earmarked or supposed to be used for streetscape and infrastructure. It's not operating expenses, because some people have the idea they could be used for a number of things, but one of them is not operating expenses. That said, they focused in on lighting and security in terms of cameras and joining security cameras. Apparently, a lot of the venues in the downtown area have cameras, but they're not joined in terms of feed, and some are internal, some are external. So the internal ones, you need permission to get joined to the feed and things of that nature. So the idea here was asking the TERS to work with the city as it moved forward in developing a security and lighting plan for the downtown area, so that we take that into account when working our plan. One thing that came to light was the fact that, of course, they're going to focus on Iturbide Street, and that makes perfect sense. An idea that came up, not for action at this time, but something for us to talk about, is if we're talking about working on projects simultaneously, one of the ideas could be to work on that first project that we're talking about, and also a revamping, a revisiting of Iturbide Street that's already been done, not to redo it in its entirety, but to fix what needs to be fixed. And part of that could be a component of lighting and security. So that was the general discussion at this meeting in very general terms. A role for TERS hasn't been designated, except for the fact that they'd like us to be part of a plan that the city develops. Did I say that correctly? Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to add to this?
I guess aside from that, we'll be working with AEP and the police to come up with a plan. I don't know if one's going to support the other or how it's going to work, but I guess we want to see what you guys can do versus then the operations could come to the city, that kind of thing.
Now, yesterday the city council took action on a plan where the councilman body introduced a resolution for the city to move forward. Did they task the police department with the security?
Yeah, in 30 days to come up with a report for downtown security.
So is there any role for us in that?
For us, the role would primarily be ensuring that any projects we do, or in the guidance that we would give our consultant, to consider safety and security related items such as lighting, buying the cameras that are necessary to do for the RTCC, which is a real-time crime center. I forget the name. Mm-hmm. It's a really nifty thing that they have. It's a really, like you see on the TV,
right?
The big shows, you have all the computers, all the big screens, live remote cameras. So they already tied into some cameras already, but it's more.
Not enough of it's
not
done.
enough.
Yeah, but they're on a,
I'm sorry, excuse my ignorance, but the TERS was developed with certain projects in mind already, or you're just going to look at general?
There's a project and an implementation plan that's been approved by the city council. Project 1 is a corridor that ties in between San Agustin, La Posada, and the outlet on Santa Rosa. And then obviously there's room for amending the plan
Like a quarter to do what, I guess I'm not following.
So, the TERS was established specifically for the downtown area in terms of streetscape. And so the streetscape, the idea here was to connect parts of the downtown that were not connected. So you have point A, which is the outlets, and you have San Agustin Plaza, point B, which are two nice areas to visit, but they're not connected. They are connected technically,
I was
but,
gonna say that there's streets and crosswalks and all that.
but it's not,
Sidewalks.
it needs to
More
be,
walkable.
you need to be at one end saying, hey, I want to go down that road to see what's at the other end of it. That's what the TERS was set up to do, the streetscape portion of that. And then you have the Arts Center, and then connecting to that area. And then when we did our walking tour of the downtown, we saw that there was a lot of connecting of east to west, but we also want to connect north to south so that you have employees that work at the county and city in this area. And what encourages them to walk south to go to a restaurant or something after work, if that's, and so that's what the idea is there. So you talk about streetscape, your mind quickly comes pavers, comes trees, comes awnings, comes something that makes it pretty, sidewalks. But part of this discussion now is don't forget to include lighting, which was always in there, but security lighting is different from just general lighting. And also to include, what really had not been there in my mind at least, are cameras. And that makes perfect sense to me now. But if you had asked me this 6 months ago, I don't think that would have been on my list.
Right.
My question is, the need seems to be a little bit more urgent than where we're at.
Right.
So what are they doing? Because, I think that by the time 2 or 3 years comes along, if things continue the way they're going, they're gonna need it yesterday, not when we're ready to do it.
Just today, as a matter of fact, we're gonna be walking downtown with AEP to see what
At night?
improvements, yes, yeah, to see what improvements, and the police chief's going with us to look at the security part of it. So I'm thinking, and this is just me, I don't have any numbers to support it, but that we can do some interim type improvements.
That was my
low
question.
budget,
What was-
just to keep it going until the real people with the money, like you guys, can come back and do something more, I'm just kidding.
No, that's a good point.
No, but that was the question,
And-
because there's
yes.
lots of little alleys. What's the one
Yeah.
where the side street of my store?
Yeah. And-
They're completely
Flores?
dark.
Yeah.
Flores is
I'll give
dark.
you, for instance, just real quick,
Please.
you were at the meeting was one here at City Council Chambers, the one you referred to earlier? That's the one?
No, I didn't attend yesterday's city.
No, it was a couple weeks ago?
No, it
Mr.
was
Bottle?
upstairs on the third floor.
You're talking about the bar?
But that-
Yeah, we had
that
one
meeting
here.
was the following
It was
day.
the same subject.
It was the following day. No, I
Okay, yeah, it
attended
was the same
prior.
subject, okay. Anyway, part of that meeting, which I guess echoed your meeting, was they wanted LEDs strung across the light, the streets, and then the trees and stuff. So that's sort of being implemented, and we're trying to find the money for that kind of stuff. So.
But there's areas that wouldn't require that because they're not necessarily, like I'm referring to Flores because it's like it's a regular street, but it's not where all the traffic is. But it's a cut-through street because it's right there.
Yeah.
And so string lighting wouldn't kind of make sense because there's nothing open there at night, but it's super dark.
Well, we're starting with where the most vocal part of it is the.
Well,
it could be
but it's
the-
super dark, like, someone could just easily
I think Penny
pull you in.
proved a really, really good point. I think it's not a walking street because it's so dark.
Well, yeah, you're right, but it's one of
And I
the
think-
main
I mean,
ones
we
for La
all-
Posada.
Even as a man, I can
Right.
tell you, the lighted one's over here, the dark one, I'm gonna
Right.
go to the lighted one.
That's,
I mean,
And I guess what I mean
I mean, it's just
is
common-
not light in the sense of decorative lighting like strung
Or just
lights,
to
but
illuminate.
just light, so it's safe, you know?
I think there's
I guess
only one,
I guess
there's
we're
only one
trying-
center pole on Flores, then that's why, and it's really dimly lit.
Yeah, well,
You know,
as part of all the street tearing up that utilities is doing, we're putting in more conduit for all that kind of stuff. So it's being thought about, it's just a matter of the budget, but I think where we mesh is, like I said, is if we know we can include something.
count on something down the
In long
line.
term, is that we can hold it up with bandages and.
Now,
Band-Aids,
With the illumination, I mean, Henry,
Yeah.
there's two issues. One is you have two layers. So you have the the layer on top where you have the high-end lighting, and then you have the canopy.
Right.
I mean, so a lot of it doesn't, if you have one or the
One of
other.
them's just
then-
function,
yeah,
right,
so you
functional.
need both.
Yeah, you almost
So-
have to have lighting from beneath and lighting from above, so that any canopy or tree,
Right.
you know, the canopies and trees are very useful in the daytime when it's super
But
hot.
then they work
But
against
then they
the,
work against you at night, so you almost have to have the bottom lighting that comes up to light things up, so that then everything that's not lit from above is lit from below.
That's what we're gonna look at today.
And so, although we might see them as different, here's where I was talking about leveraging funds. Let's assume that there's a budget involved here. And I'm gonna just make up numbers, but let's say the budget is $1 million and AEP is gonna do something to the tune of $1 million to help with this. Well, I don't know the answer, but I'm thinking, if you leverage this with funds that are related to the TERS, do we get closer to the 3 million needed to get the 10 million to get the project started sooner? Because we now have an extra million to use this leverage, because it's speeding and working with what we're needing to work with.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, we don't, I mean, if Danny would have told us that he's gonna meet with AEP tonight, when would we have
yeah.
known that they were gonna do it? And then I guess my big thing is if we had our
We're out of
standards
the
in
loop, we're
place,
out of the loop always.
you know, what light are they gonna put out there? Is
Right.
it gonna match what we wanna put out there once we decide our future projects?
Right.
that's probably.
I think they're
that-
talking more of a Band-Aid. I think.
Well, but the thing is,
right?
AEP changed out all the lights around the plaza
Okay.
2 months ago.
Uh-huh.
And I guess they matched what was already there, but I don't know if someone goes and put Band-Aids on all these lights or puts new lights, are they gonna be the same? Not, is it
Well,
gonna be the same
and
lumens, you know?
that refers to one of our very first meetings where the city plans something and the TERS is left out of the loop. And we could have done it a different way or a better way, or we're totally in agreement with the way it's being done. But we always find out about how things are done, like, for instance, the handicap situation by the mall. We find about things after the fact, and it's too late to change anything because, you know, we weren't involved in it.
So I think, you raise a good point. I mean, I think this moved very fast simply because of the issue,
Yeah,
the
security.
unfortunate incident that occurred not too long ago. And so this has been moving very quickly.
But it's good problems to have.
Yeah.
But I think that
There's a lot
that's
of-
something to keep in mind. I think when you're doing the walking deal, is it's a double-edged sword to include the TERS and not include the TERS in certain things. And this is what I mean. Certainly we want to hear about the planning process. But if we're walking around with a lot of people that are looking for
Right.
funding to do something, then we're almost saying we're going to participate.
Right.
And the question is, how much can we participate actually in things?
It's just
Because, listen, remember how we got looped into the housing portion of this also?
Right.
We started participating with the housing summit, which is, I'm not criticizing it, it was a good summit, it needed to be done and everything. But a couple of people were expecting things from the TERS that were just not part of what the TERS was doing. Housing it is, but there were a couple of other people that met with me and says, wow, can you TERS people fund this? Can you fund that? And I realized we're creating an expectation
The
that's not
concern
realistic.
that I have is that we're not there yet, but it would be good, it would be awesome if we were there, is if we had our consultants with like the master plan that we have, and it's like a master lighting plan, and if AEP and the city wanna go do a certain block or street, it adheres to our master
Right, so
plan,
we
and
don't
we know
have
we
to-
don't have to do it in the future because they did it with other funds.
Not to have to double back and redo what's already been done.
So,
Right.
Well, and excuse
Agree here.
this ignorant question, but if you're doing walkability, walking at night wasn't thought about, or?
No,
yes,
it was.
exactly, it
No,
was.
we did a walk in the morning, in the afternoon and one at night.
It was just, you know, you walk at night and you have one light that's a yellow light, one's an LED light. The LED doesn't give off as much light as this other light, you know, do we want some uniformity from block to block to block, so it's all the same, you know, right now it's kinda, like you said, well,
That was the discussion, Certainly lighting was a conversation, part of the conversation. But you raised a very good point. You see, so what we were noticing the difference in kinds of lighting that existed. So let's say this is a tragic incident that occurred very recently. So,
Can I ask which one you're referring to? I'm new with the city, so I'm not
the young lady that was basically kidnapped from the
Well,
downtown area?
no, she wasn't.
She was not
took an-
kidnapped.
No, she took an Uber.
From
to
my understanding, she
somebody's
took
house.
an
Young lady who took an Uber. Anyway, it started in the downtown area, and that's part of what started the conversation. So there was an incident that occurred in the downtown area that started this conversation. Now, one quick solution to all of this is to put football lighting in the downtown area. Now, I'm exaggerating, but I'm not
Right,
exaggerating.
right.
Because then all of a sudden, when people are thinking about security, you're thinking your biggest, your brightest, your best lights, and let's just put them.
To do that, you gotta do a lighting study, because you know you got light pollution and stuff. It's environmental.
Yeah.
When you start doing.
But do you understand you understand where I'm going with this? I mean, the point is, not that that's what you're gonna do, what I'm saying, if the TERS is not involved, or we're not there's no discussion that there may be a plan in place that talks about the the walkability and everything, what kind of lighting? We want lighting that provides security. And again, if you went to an extreme, a football light type deal would do it. But then we don't have this walkable, pretty nighttime view to it. So that's a point just to keep in mind when you all are walking. Because what we're thinking also about is lighting as well, but lighting that matches, that provides security, but works with what the feel that's going to be created in the downtown area.
You don't
I don't know
wanna-
the answer.
You don't wanna make it daylight, I mean. it's
At the
just-
same time, like I said, I may be speaking out of turn, using the word Band-Aid or whatever, but we're trying to find $25,000 just to do the trees and stuff like that, so, the budget is just coming up, and there may be money for this. We had some money to overhaul the high mast lights on 35, the real high ones, we can use less energy, make them LED and stuff, so I don't know if they'll be taking money out of that or something, but it's a whole
Yeah,
lot. But,
yeah. I understand what you're saying. So,
Well, I think we're in tune, the whole board is in tune to participating in this, and any projects give the guidance to the consultant to include the necessary lighting improvements and
Well, that was there
camera
anyway. The
systems.
only thing that wasn't, would have been the cameras.
Right.
But the rest was there.
But that's kind of like a given, I mean, right? I don't think anybody will disagree with supporting them.
so what I wanted through this item on the agenda was to brief you on what was discussed at this meeting, just so that you understand that if we hadn't thought about another dimension or aspect to the TERS, here it is. And I think it's a logical dimension, again, lighting has always been in our minds, security cameras had not, but that makes so much sense because an unfortunate incident can just kill a zone and you don't want something.
And they
to-
did rely on what little cameras were out
Yeah.
there for this situation.
What we can do, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we need to take action.
No, it was just a report.
But I think we need to wait until this downtown security plan study comes about, and then have the police chief come and present to us, and then that way we can start giving some direction to the consultant.
Or
And that should be in the next 2 months or so that we can kind of do that.
is anybody
That's a
else
good
besides Mr. Ricky gonna participate in this walkthrough tonight?
I don't know who they have, I'm not invited.
the police chief will be there.
So can we get a debriefing on,
You can.
like if someone says, if y'all meet, everybody meets and they say, we're gonna put lights here, 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 and here, and this kind, I mean, I think we should kind of know.
Well, today we're just walking with the AP, just to see what ideas they have, what they can do for us. They want to see what kind of, all the lights that we talked about, the 3 or 4 different 5 kinds of lights. They want to see what's there, to see if we can upgrade, what kind of infrastructure we need.
Is this all part of the request by the councilman for the report?
Yes.
Okay, so
That's what I'm talking about.
they're not here to take action on this, they're here to do this to prepare the report that's due to the council at the end of the month,
Okay.
in terms of security,
So then we can just go listen to it the same.
and then we
when
can
they-
comment
when
on
they-
it.
Well, whatever they approve, or they approve that and add to it, well, then can say, well, this is what the council approved and wants to do. TERS, we need your help,
Because there's even possibilities we could buy out AEP what they're doing. We just assume the maintenance, supposedly that lowers our energy costs tremendously, according to some consultants that came by and talked to us. So there's different options we can look at. And like the security camera part of it, it may not involve a whole lot, maybe just working with the TERS to say, you know what, if you put a pole here for light, as opposed to here, we can mount a camera on it later on. That kind of thing, working together.
Understood. Any other comments? Very good. There are no more items on the agenda, so the final, well, actually, what I'd like to just do is remind us, just so that we make sure. So the next meeting will be September 10th
Yes,
at 5:30.
yes.
Very good.
And I already sent out some Outlook invites, I'll adjust the one from above.
Very good. Thank you.
Did everybody get them?
Yes.
September 10th at.
5:30.
I don't have it.
5:30.
Oh, there it is.
And if you want us to come by, the chief or me or whoever, both, whatever, and we can come by and give you whatever findings we have to point.
That would be welcome.
Okay.
I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
A second.
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
Oh, my camera is working.
It's a grandma.